All right, welcome to the Sharp Mind Show, episode 88. I'm Nate, the Fifth Future MD, your host. Be sure to shop at InserSale.com. Pick you up a cool, inspirational t shirt today. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with somebody that needs it, and comment down below and let me know what you thought about it. All right. So, top story of the day is Fed cuts rates again, now sitting at 3.5 to 3.75. The big question is, how does it affect you? Well, in my opinion, it doesn't affect us at all, right? Who it actually affects and helps is the banks, right? Because the banks were sitting there having to pay high yield savings accounts, higher than that, CDs higher than that, stuff like that, right? But to be honest, on a $400,000 mortgage, you're still sitting at a $2,900 payment, right? And for most people, you know, if you're bringing home $3,000 a month or so, you're sitting at 50 grand, 60 grand, right? And so that's going to be your whole paycheck, right? So, I was doing the math the other day. Um, House over here, if we took the equity from our house now and put it down on it, we would still be paying, you know, 2.5 times what we're paying now for our current home, right? So, the Fed, to ever actually make any difference in the housing market may have to be at, a 1.8, 1.5 to 1.75 rate to ever actually make a dent in this housing market. Um, so as a normal person, it's not going to help you at all. But honestly, if the rate gets cut that low, then you're going to see the price of housing start doing this again, right? So what you really want is you really want this price of housing to stay here and then let the pay start going up to meet it, right? Because basically people are going to be, they got 30-year mortgages at 3.8, you know, they're not going to be trading out to triple how much they pay, right? It's just not. And even if they bought a house that's too small, they'd rather spend $50,000 or $60,000 to add on to the home that they're in and only pay the extra interest on the expansion of the house or whatever, right? So keep that in mind. You also might see people doing two-story renovations, stuff like that, right? Where you make a one-story, a two-story. But basically, this rate cut's not going to affect normal people. It's not bringing the price of housing down. But what it will do is it will make you make less in your CDs, less in your high yield savings accounts, stuff like that, right? So, and basically, Powell basically, I don't think it's Powell. The Fed chairman basically came out and said, this is not really going to help the housing situation at all. And that the supply of housing is low. And then, of course, that got people saying, well, that means corporations shouldn't be able to buy it. That means people shouldn't be able to have, 12 homes, you know, and have all these rentals and stuff like that. Well, you know, there has to be people to buy it, right? And most people are not going to be eligible to buy because they're not going to spend the discipline to get the 20% down so they can buy, right? So keep that in mind. It looks like the cost of housing, cost of living is going to continue to increase. Right now, renting is still cheaper than buying, right? But as the time wears on, that's going to come up to meet it, right? So you're going to see increases. So if you're paying $1,000 a month in rent right now, you're going to be paying $1,800 a month in rent in the next 3 years, right? So it's going to go on up there. And then it'll do this until they're even, right? So, but that's just my 2 cents on what I think the Fed rate cut means. It means absolutely nothing to me. And honestly, once you have money, you stop borrowing money. So, it really doesn't, the rate cuts don't matter anymore unless you're one of these people that continuously refinances and borrows money, right? So, keep that in mind. Um, this episode is brought to you by Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins, which is my wife's children's book. So if you got nieces, nephews, or children of your own, be sure to check out Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins, written by Amazon bestselling author Meredith Dylan Johnson. Now available on Amazon. Go check that out, guys. We really appreciate your support. All right. And so the next thing in finance says, how do I stop living paycheck to paycheck even though I make decent money? Right. So there's two sides to living paycheck to paycheck, right? Your income and your expenses, right? So if your income is fixed, like I say, we're not going to make any more income, then you have to work on the spending part, right? The the expense part, right? So basically you're going to say, make decent money. So I assume this person makes, you know, more than the average, just say 60, $70,000. And, basically at $60,000 now, you're not going to be buying brand new cars, right? You're not even going to be having a car payment if. So I've talked about that before, how you get rid of car payments. Um, Easiest way is to get rid of one car, have one car for a while you save up the car payment to purchase the beater car, and then you do the same thing with the next one, right? Um, so number one, that's the one of the biggest expenses. So you go think about your expenses, your housing, uh, your transportation. Those are usually the two business, and then healthcare, three biggest expenses, right? So you have to figure out where you're overspending, right? Most of the time, it's on the cars, right? Most people would spend more on where they live versus hopefully where they live versus cars, but you do see brand new cars out in front of trailer parks a lot. So keep that in mind. But basically, you just have to work on the expense side, right? So how do you not live paycheck to paycheck? You get rid of some of your expenses, right? So and like I say, I always talk about investing, right? So I'm going to pay myself first, no matter what. And so that means even if well, I'll talk about that in the next one, but you stop living paycheck to paycheck by budgeting. Basically, simple answer. Let me know how you would stop living paycheck to paycheck. What expense would you cut? You cutting cars? You cutting coffee? What expense are you cutting? So like even me, like I'm thinking about cutting a meal, like just completely cutting a meal out every day, right? So that's obviously going to help out over the long term, right? It also help you be healthier, right? So just thinking about that, doing 2 meals a day instead of three, you know, where I used to be able to do six, right? So age is catching up with me, I guess, but um, keep that in mind. So that's how I would stop living paycheck to paycheck. Number one, I'm paying myself first. Number two, I am checking my budget to see where I'm overspending, right? And then I'm eliminating that item, right? So whether that be cars, whether that be going out to eat, whatever. Um, and that's basically how you stop living paycheck to paycheck. You actually look and see where your money's going, right? So keep that in mind. All right, on to the next one. And it says, what's the best way to start investing if I feel totally clueless? All right, so number one, the number one rule of investing is if you don't understand an investment, you don't invest in it, right? So I really love the stock market, right? But I didn't start investing in the stock market. I started investing in silver, right? And so silver was a $20 spot price when I started investing in silver. And today, as of this morning, I just looked, the spot price for silver is $62.64. So I've literally tripled up on my investment in silver. And so the reason I liked silver when I first started investing is because I understood everything about silver, right? Understood it's a commodity, right? I understood that it's used in industry. I understood that there's a limited supply of it, in the ground. Even if you had, even if you were able to dig up the whole earth, there's still only a limited supply of silver, right? And it was trading at the time for historical lows, right? So basically, just like I do value investing now in the stock market, it was a value investment, right? So, and then they also put cool designs on coins, right? So I can have a Hulk coin, I can have a Black Panther coin, I can have a Queen Elizabeth on a coin, I can have the Canadian maple leaf on a coin, right? And so I can have special coins that are perfect coins, that are rare, stuff like that, right? So um, the best way to start investing is obviously into something that you know and understand. However, what most people push in investing is investing in real estate and investing in the stock market, right? So obviously, right now, real estate's at all time highs. You're not going to be really investing in real estate currently, in my opinion. So, um, also, most of the stock market's at all time highs too. But recently, we've seen a pullback, and every year, what I do um, is I do a scan. I see where companies are at, right? And I use that scan. They're all S&P 500 companies, and I want to see what company is down that could make a comeback. And usually, I find 4 or 5 that I can find and make a comeback on, right? So, um, but without to not feel totally clueless, you have to educate yourself, right? So the only way to not feel clueless is to educate yourself, and so that's why one of the reasons I like Thinkorswim, because they have a free money mode, right? Where you can go in and you can learn, like, okay, if I set up here and I set up here and I buy here, what's it look like 3 months from now? That type of stuff. Or what's it look like at the end of the day? If you're trying to learn to day trade, it's got a basically a learning mode where you don't have to lose your money to learn, right? So, you know, um, but that's how you don't feel totally clueless. You go mindset, skill set, habits. So I got to work on my skill set, right? And I use my habits to work on my skill set. So I'm gonna read 10 minutes a day to learn the new skill set of how to invest, right? So hopefully this helps you out, guys. Let me know how you would start investing without being totally clueless. My basic answer is to educate yourself, or to invest in stuff that you already know about, right? So if you're a person that knows about sneakers, you may be an investor in sneakers. If you're a person that knows about cards and stuff like that, you may invest in cards. About Jeeps, and so, like, when I was a kid, people would investing in classic cars, right? So, oh, that's a you know 78 Trans Am. That's the Bandit car, right? It's worth, you're buying it right now for 10, and 20 years it might be worth 20, right? And even the steel and all that stuff that's inside it, can be good investments, right? So, and then some people got so many cars that they open up a little museum, and people come in and look at the cars inside a museum, right? So, you know, investing can be in a lot of things other than just real estate and the stock market, but the most common is real estate and the stock market. So you learn how to do this stuff, right? You have to invest time into learning it, right? All right. And like I said, the number one rule is you don't invest unless you understand what you're investing in. All right. And so the last thing of the day is the quote of the day. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And that's from Aristotle. So excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So I talk about this every day: mindset, skill set, habits, right? So you start with your mindset. You read affirmations every day, which then becomes a habit to read these affirmations every day, which changes your mindset, changes your perception on the world, right? And on yourself within the world, right? And so You work on your skill set. You read 10 minutes a day on whatever skill you're trying to learn, whether that be investing, whether that be trying to get a promotion at work, whatever. There's going to be a time where, you're not investing in that $20 coin anymore. All of a sudden you're putting $10,000, $20,000 into a company, and you've done your due diligence by reading 10 minutes a day on that company so that you can successfully put $10 or $20,000 into that company. And you've done your due diligence on that company. You understand the investment, right? So keep that in mind. So you work on that skill set 10 minutes a day, and that becomes your habits, right? Habits, and you talk about your habits and become, how do you become excellence, right? You start with, what time do you wake up? Make it a habit to wake up early, right? And not wake up early to BS, wake up early to actually work and do something to get yourself ahead, right? And so getting yourself ahead could be reading for 10 minutes a day, right? It could be, go ahead and getting your workout in, right? Um, there's a lot of things you can do, right? Say you got a big meeting that day, you can wake up and read the notes on the meeting so that you're more prepared, stuff like that, right? So excellence is not an act, but a habit, right? I'm Nate, and I'm a life coach. If you're looking to set up your life of excellence and make it a habit, you can hit me up in the DM for life coaching. Shop at InstaSell.com, pick up a cool inspirational t-shirt. Be sure to support our sponsor, Dylan and Davina, The Adventure Begins, which is my wife's children's book. Checking it out on Amazon. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with somebody that needs it, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.